Jan Stuart, global energy economist at Cornerstone Macro. Thanks for your time tonight.
Hey, good evening. Actually, it's Piper Sandler now. We were acquired by the Piper Sandler Bank. So just a small correction. My apologies.
No worries. Let me ask you about Canada and then actually North America and how much this country first relies, if it does at all, on Russian gas or oil.
No, I mean, to be really, really crass, right? And I feel for your guest that you had on just now. But if we limit this conversation to just pure economics and business, just to, again, be very crass, this is good for Canada. This is good for America. Both Canada and America have a lot of oil. Very few places outside of Russia have the ability to grow their oil and gas supplies, and the world now needs to grow those supplies.
But does that or can that happen quickly if Canada needs or America needs to ramp up?
I think Canada now is a better argument for getting passage of the XL pipeline, right? It won't happen quickly, but that's why we have strategic petroleum reserves. And the Europeans have strategic petroleum reserves. But you now, as an industry and as a national decision-making apparatus, have to count on the supplies from Russia becoming tainted. We will see what sanctions get leveled. We will see whether President Putin chooses to use energy exports as a weapon. Because what you saw in the oil market today was that the flow of oil and the flow of gas from Russia is still going. That's why when prices initially spiked, they came down again. And now relatively unchanged in the high 90s because the Russian oil for now is flowing. If that were to stop to any degree, then the world has a problem.
Let me ask you about what else, if anything, we rely on Russia for.
Oh, several things, because so we have oil, we have gas, we have oil products, especially diesel and gas oil. We then have from Belarus potash, which you in Canada know an awful lot about. We will have eventually to worry about the grain harvest in Ukraine. We have aluminum, we have coal, we have iron ore, we have all sorts of stuff coming out of Russia. Incidentally and additionally, especially Europe sells a lot to Russia. So the economic ramifications of what is now happening are very many.
So Europe obviously closely aligned because of the geography here. What countries specifically in Europe you think will feel this the most? I know Germany's one of them.
Well, I mean, what your prior guest suggested was to embargo Russian energy exports. That would be shooting yourself in both feet if you are any one country in Europe. Now, what exports a lot to Russia, including its former prime ministers, is Germany. And who buys in Moscow an awful lot of German advanced, very expensive cars? That would be the Russian elite. France has a habit of selling an awful lot of stuff to Russia, but also lending to Russia. One reason why you don't want to turf the Russians out of SWIFT is because your own banks will go belly up, right? So there is more than meets the eye in the relationships, in terms of relationships with Russia, even after all the sanctions that have been put in place since 2014.
Expand for me, please, about SWIFT, because it seems to be held back, as you mentioned, because it's a complicated system that could also impact other financial institutions. Can you give me a for example?
It's not that complicated, right? It is literally the network that all commercial banks and all commercial financial institutions use to do business. So if you turf Russia out of that, then everything and everyone that does business with Russia, private institutions, giant banks, and so on, will have real trouble doing business with Russia. You lose that much business, and the Russians lose the ability to pay. What happens to all the debt that was written and that is owned by Russian entities? The beauty of the thoroughly intertwined network of commercial relations that we have had around the world since Bretton Woods of 1943 is that everything is quite literally intertwined. If you hurt the other person, you automatically hurt yourself.
Yeah.
That's
international trade. Let me ask you one more thing, and that is, if we know what Russia gives to the world, what does Russia rely on, and where do they get it?
Well, that's what was very neat and surgical about the sanctions that were put in place today. Russia imports far and away the most of all the stuff that it really cares about from NATO countries, Germany, France, but also the United States, also Canada. And it's especially valuable to Russia is all the stuff that they cannot do themselves. That would be, really important things like microchips. That would be all manner of other high tech. That would be all sorts of machinery and engineering products that especially Germany is extremely good at manufacturing. So it's high tech and the high tech stuff. Whether that's software and or hardware and high value engineering, all of that Russia does less well, and all of that Russia.
Jan, sorry, I've got to leave the conversation there. I'm out of time with you, but thank you, sir. Appreciate you weighing in on this with your expertise.
Anytime. All the best. Bye-bye.